We are going to create some simple SVG maps from a shapefile. A Python server will create the paths in the basic element, and then some JavaScript will help edit the final product. These shapes can then be used for a variety of purposes where you might want a geographic element. I want Python to read a shapefile of US states downloaded from natural earth. I will use a few libraries to process the geodata. It is not too hard to install these if you follow the relevant documentation, and then we have some powerful tools to use. I am also using Jinja 2 to make the HTML files once I have extracted the desired paths and data. First, I open the file with Fiona to create a GeoJSON object. Then I iterate over all the states and convert the coordinates to the Mercator projection and keep track of the bounding box for each state. Then I run through the paths again, scaling and shifting to fit each state into a rectangle that starts at 0, 0 with a height of 100. This object can then easily be inserted into a simple template to generate an SVG element for any state. The template can be edited to set the color or any other property of the shapes. I am going to spin up a simple Flask server to set various options. Input a list of states and the server will create the SVG. We can now quickly and easily make a variety of maps from the browser. On the creation page, I'm going to display a table with the various properties of the shapefile. Then I can make this page flexible to handle a variety of files with different columns. We can also pick a map projection from this page. If the projection has latitude as the first coordinate, then the image will be rotated 90 degrees. We can pass any of the data columns to the SVG as data attributes. These attributes can then be used to display information about the states, be used in JavaScript functions, or whatever. The Python ecosystem offers lots of options to perform complex geometric operations with a few lines of code. One of the many possibilities with the Shapefile library is to create a union of several shapes. Then we can display a border around the entire region, and it works for non-contiguous regions. Now we will use some client-side JavaScript to modify the generated SVG. The first thing we will do is move some of the states. We need to add some event listeners, grab mouse coordinates, and scale those coordinates to match our SVG units. Then we will use the transform attribute to translate the state to the desired location. Once the state's been translated, we need to add any additional offsets to the current translation. It's probably best to store the translation in a JSON object, but I will parse the old transform attribute. The Mercator projection makes Alaska huge, but we can at least move it closer to the continental US when we want. If we move some states around, then we might need to adjust the ViewBox to exactly fit. The simplest way to set the values is text inputs, but there are several options. It is a bit nicer to drag the ViewBox to fit each of the dimensions. We will add some blue bars to slide to the right location and update the values. Once we have changed the SVG, we might want to copy or download the updated elements. Check the compatibility of the clipboard write text function if you want to support multiple browsers. For special characters, you may need a better encoding function to download. By default, I will add a label located at the centroid of each state. This location will be good enough for lots of shapes, but for weird shapes, we will want to make the label movable. When the states move, the label should stay in the same place relative to the state because the whole group is translated. We will add a few more editing options. Adjust the size of the regions, being careful not to clash with any translations. Delete or duplicate regions. Change the fill color. At this point, we should be able to make the map look pretty close to what we want for most simple ideas. But you can add any other options required with a bit more JavaScript. The final thing for now is to give each state its own border. I will clip each object so that the stroke does not overlap other states. This approach will allow for each state to have a different colored border as well as fill color. Then we add options to edit the size and/or color of the borders. Once we can create SVG shapes, we can use them in lots of games and applications. Use state or country outlines to quickly create a large variety of interesting boundaries. Get creative or just create maps that can be colored by hand. If any of the code that flashed by was interesting to you, there are several links in the description. And go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe.